राह रास्त आपको लिए चलते हैं। वजीर खजाना शौकत तरीन मीडिया से मुखातिब हैं।
$5 billion in 2013 to almost $21 billion in 2018. We had a high fiscal deficit, and the country was moving towards a default, as state bank reserves were barely enough to meet 1 to 1.5 months of imports, and we had a ballooning circular debt. Those days, the payments for the capacity payments were around 465 billion rupees a year. I think Prime Minister gave him credit. He tried his level best to get money from his friends and found out the hole was too big. So he had to go to the IMF. Unlike 2008 when I went to the IMF, when people were friendly to us, the countries were friendly to us because of war on terror, and we got a very useful package which was almost 6 times our quota. This time around, IMF was very tough. I think they were not, obviously, given the geopolitical situation around us, the countries who influenced, the major Western powers. So this IMF program was tough and front-loaded. The interest rates, the discount rate was raised to 13.25%. when the core inflation was 7%. Frankly, I have a problem because discount rates don't manage food inflation. Core inflation was 7% and overall inflation of a little over 10%, where the rest was food inflation. I think the IMF mandating us to go to 13.25% was an overkill, which cost us hundreds of billions of rupees. They also made us do a steep devaluation of our rupee. There were sharp increases in electricity, gas, and other tariffs to bring down the circular debt flows. Well, this was for stabilization of the economy. Obviously, the growth rate, went down, and we're looking at around 1.5, 1.9% growth. But then COVID happened, and COVID pushed this growth to negative territory, 0.5%. The government just did well, introduced a fiscal stimulus, gave people, the needy people, some money, cash, and it was very efficiently done by the Ehsaas program. There was a liquidity stimulus by the State Bank of Pakistan for the business sector, whether large, small, and then Prime Minister, I think, did a great job by introducing the construction package, because he realized that construction is one industry which not only just brings in a lot of labor to work, but also supports around 42 industries on its own. And by giving them the incentives, he would at least pump up some kind of economic activity. Economy started to stabilize. Current account deficits, actually was curtailed, and in the recent year, it is in a surplus. But economic growth was negative. It started recovering this year as the large-scale manufacturing started to pick up, exports started to pick up, agriculture, major crops were, very robust, except cotton. and services sector, started to pick up alongside the housing. Not only this happened, but as the economy picked up, we have seen the revenues of the government also started to pick up. This month, they will cross 4 trillion rupees for the first time in the history of Pakistan, and probably will be closer to 4.2. We see a 3.94% growth in the economy. Well, people predicted start of this fiscal that'll probably be between 1.5 to 3%, but I think we are hitting around 3.94%. But this is where we are today. So you want to hear what are we going to do going forward? I think what we want is an inclusive and sustainable growth over a long period of time. As Humayun said, the East Asian economies such as Turkey, they achieved a certain level of economic, prosperity through inclusive and sustainable growth. So, as he said that, we have never had sustainable growth for a long period of time except in the 60s. So when I just came in, I just got some eminent economists together. We had an EAC, Economic Advisory Council, but out of that Advisory Economic Council, we had few eminent economists led by Dr. Ishrat Hussain, and I requested them to find out why don't we have an inclusive and sustainable growth over a long period of time? What causes us to break the cycle? So they are working on it. By the next week, we'll probably have a very comprehensive answer. But then we also tasked the Economic Advisory Council to work with the government in 12 sectors of the economy, and give us short-term, medium and long-term plans how to grow these sectors. We do not have the resources to, cover all the sectors, but we are focused now. And I'm talking about major sectors like, fiscal side. We're talking about, the agriculture, manufacturing, power sector, financial sector, housing, all those major sectors. We said, now you please give us some way forward. And this is the first time that we'll be doing this. Because after the 60s, when we used to have a very powerful planning commission, and it used to be the mother of the government, I think successive governments, made them just a project evaluation and implementation division. This time around, we are going to do this, and hopefully when it starts working, we're going to fold that whole process into the planning commission to make it once again a very powerful ministry. But then we will have a planned growth and a roadmap which we can, not only this government can follow, but subsequent governments can also follow. And this has been, the hallmark of countries who have grown, that they had consistency in the planning process, and whether it's India, China, and some of the other East Asian countries, and even in Turkey. So, what is our focus now? I think our focus has now shifted to growth. Unless we do not grow the economy, I think with all these other things, we are not going to be able to move into the next orbit. So how do we grow the economy? The first task is obviously, like any other government, is to increase revenues. Our revenues at less than 10% of GDP, they're not good enough. So we have to figure out how to grow these revenues, and I will tell you some of those things which we will be doing. But the fact is that we are going to add ₹1 trillion into our revenue stream next year. This year will be the highest revenue collection, closer to 4.8 trillion rupees, which is the first in history. But then next year we'll probably go to around 5.8 trillion. IMF is saying closer to 6 trillion. But whether it's 5.8 or 6, it's pretty close. But never have we collected ₹1 trillion additionally in a year. So that receives our number one, a kind of focus or efforts. Then PSDP, we are going to spend 650 billion this year, but then we'll ramp it up to around 900 billion next year. But it will have to be efficient. And I think for the knowledge of the audience, the Planning Commission started, doing the public-private partnerships, in the PSDP, which means the amount of 900 billion will have a greater impact on the ground with the participation of the private sector. Then we move into the productive sectors. Productive sectors of our economy, which are number one to me, is agriculture. We all know that we used to be a food exporting country. Now we are a net food importing country. This is a far cry from the 60s, 70s, and even 80s, 90s. So we got to focus on that. We have to focus on all the elements of our agriculture chain. And I think there is the plan which is really a very, very progressive plan which is being put in place. And in this budget too, you will see that we will put in give a lot of incentives to the agriculture sector of our economy. We have to make our industry more efficient. When we make our industry more efficient, our exports become more efficient and we export more. So am I asked, why is it that we keep falling in this trap? The very fact is that when we start growing, obviously there is a pressure on imports. People have the buying power, so they just try to buy other things which are then we can't manufacture, we don't manufacture, so we import. And that puts pressure on our reserves, foreign currency reserves. Because our exports are not keeping pace with our overall growth, we fall short of dollars. Never have we gone into a tailspin for other reason than balance of payments. So exports, exports, exports. I think that is the mantra. And I will later on tell you what kind of measures we are taking, to just boost our exports. We are also going to just give incentives to our service industry, whether it's housing. We are also within the services sector, we have also make our e-commerce very efficient through digitization, and we will give incentives over there, so that we, rather than just being a cash economy, it becomes a digital economy, and that creates opportunities for us even in the revenue collection. We have to stabilize the power sector. Power sector is a big hole. Today at 2.3 trillion, the circular debt is humongous. Not only we have to stop the flows, we got to reduce it over a period of time. And how do we do it? when there is a challenge of capacity payments, which are going to go up, rise up to 1.45 trillion rupees a year. Remember, I told you it was 465 billion in 2018. You're going to triple to 1.5 trillion, 45 trillion. Because I think when we started installing additional capacity, we forgot that it has to be used. Or otherwise, because of the contracts, we'll have to start paying for the electricity we are not even, producing and using. So this is a great challenge, because unless we make it financially viable, nobody is going to invest in this sector in the future. So this is a great challenge, and we are coming up with innovative ways to make sure that our circular debt does not increase and starts reducing, over a period of time. But the Prime Minister has given commitment to the people of Pakistan that, we are not going to increase the electricity tariff in the near future, because that doesn't help. People are already burdened with, a very costly electricity. Maybe the lower end is protected, but what about the middle class? What about the industrial sector, commercial sector, export sector? So, power sector has to be stabilized. We need to control prices. And prices here, what we see is all food inflation. I've already mentioned to you about agriculture. Unless we do not increase the production of agriculture, this is not going to be, controlled in a kind of a long term. So, we also have to give the market the mechanism to take away these large margins which people have, the middlemen have, from the farmer to the wholesaler. The margins are over 400-500%. So we need to create commodity warehousing, cold storages, mechanism for farmer to come to the wholesale market themselves, alongside, productivity in the agriculture sector, so that we start producing surpluses. Administrative control also will have to be strengthened. And during the Musharraf era, I think price control magistrates were removed. We have to think through, whether we have to bring them back. But importantly, I think, this is going to be a change from the previous governments. That we are not only going to be dependent on the trickle-down effect to boost the incomes of the people. Because what has happened in the past is that with 3, 4, 5 year, growth cycles, the minute, the trickle down reaches in the bottom segments of our society, the cycle breaks. So these guys, they take one step forward and then fall right back to where they were. So that is why we are saying a sustainable growth over a long period of time, so that that trickle-down effect reaches all sectors of the economy. But, as I said, departure from the past, we are also going to be working on the bottoms-up approach. Even Joe Biden has said the US needs that. If US needs that, by God, we certainly need that. When I say bottoms-up approach, I'm saying the 4 to 6 million households at the bottom rung of our income levels will have to be given interventions whereby they can earn their living on their own and not just be dependent on handouts. They should have houses. They should have health insurance. They should have skill development for, their family members, so that they can go and just, get some jobs. A comprehensive package. And we have to do it in a way whereby it's not inflationary. That it basically does not, we don't depend on fiscal deficits to fund this. So it has to be innovative, and we are working on that. So what do we have in the budget? I think in the budget, we have additionality of ₹1 trillion in revenues. We are not going to increase taxes on people who are paying taxes. Apart from we remove some incentives from people, we believe they have been given incentives for no rhyme or reason. We are going to take away the harassment, of the FBR from the lives of the people. A lot of people complain that we are not in the net because we are worried about the harassment of FBR. So in this budget, you will see the announcement that there will be universal self-assessment and third-party audit for 3 to 4% of the population, a risk-based population, but done by third party. No FBR person will do that. So people will be free of the harassment of the FBR. But if that is done, then it will be incumbent upon people who have incomes or the merchants who have, who basically control consumption to pay taxes. Because if we find out and we'll have a cell which go all out using technology, which now gives us the ability to reach out to those people who have electricity bills, they have energy bills, they have deposits. So we have the data. We'll reach them, and if they are willful defaulters, if those people who are supposed to pay taxes are not paying taxes, so we'll basically take punitive actions and put them behind bars. We mean business. We believe that using technology will help us expand our retail, GST. We have around 80,000 POSs in the market. We are only using 10,000 who are linked to the FBR. But I just want to go beyond that. I want to go beyond the 80,000. I want to take this POSs to 500,000 POSs in 2 years. Now somebody will ask, who the hell is going to pay for them? The traders are not going to pay. We will pay. FBR will pay. We are going to pay for the POSs, and then we will come up with a scheme whereby we give prizes to people who actually pay the sales tax. They send us the invoices or receipts, and we'll give them prizes every month. Large prizes, a very large pool of prizes. So the consumer is going to make sure they force the retailer to give the proper receipt, or they'll move away from that store. So it's not going to be coercion. We are going to incentivize the customer to do that. And this has happened not only what we are doing, this is not unique. This happened in Turkey, happened in Colombia. I saw, in Kenya, there have been numbers in almost all retail shops. So it's happening all over the world. So this will help us really increase our sales, where we have 17% sales, GST. But the contribution is, less than 5%. We're also going to, incentivize the productive sectors, the industry, the exports, as I told you, agriculture. This time around, I just told the Ministry of Commerce, you tell us what's the envelope you need, and let us not tell you how to distribute that. you distribute to those industries, those exporters who will enhance the productivity in their sectors. So they are going to be the decision makers. It's a paradigm shift. And let me tell you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, nobody wants to let go of the control. And FBR is no exception. But I have convinced them, and they are convinced now, they let the productive side of our economy tell us what they need, and then we'll track it. It's not that, we just basically is free money. But we'll track it, but they have to decide. And this is, as I said, is a paradigm shift in thinking. We are going to incentivize exports through SCZs. As a matter of fact, we just decided that 1.5% in turnover tax is not going to be applicable in special economic zones. We are going to incentivize exports in the value-added sector. And we are going to incentivize IT. IT is $2 billion exports this year. I want to see that $8 billion in 2023. And by the way, in India, they broke the $1 billion exports in 2000, but 2010 they had crossed $100 billion. We had the same, kind of caliber of people, if not better. So I think IT is where we must invest. And then we need to bring in FDI. This is very important. We need to bring in FDI in the export sector. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, and I'm not blaming the private sector in this, but somehow the other, we have been saying export or import substitution is the same thing. I don't think so. When you basically say import substitution, yes, you replace, the dollars you would have spent on imports. Exports gives you much more than that. Export gives you, the ability to, if you have FDI over there, the technology, the money which comes in, the foreign currency for investments, but export markets. And that's how these East Asian countries, including China, have progressed. You all realize what Deng Xiaoping did in 1979. He actually created 4 zones and told them that these are your zones. You will have your own, legal system, financial system, labor system, and ability to train people, and we'll give you the territory, and then you just bring in money, manufacture and re-export. Malaysia did the same thing. India has done more or less the same thing. Turkey has done it, and so we should do the same thing. We must now encourage FDI in exports.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, आप देख रहे हैं प्रोग्राम काशिफ अब्बासी के साथ। आज वेलकम बैक नाज़रीन।
सवाल के साथ मैं हूं